Hi, I'm Mark Mazzaferro, and it's time for another episode of On the Beat. And with us, as always, on the beat is Vacaville Police Chief John Carli. John, thanks for being here.
Thanks again for having me.
You're welcome, and welcome to our new kind of setup here. Just a little something we're trying, a little experimentation on the beat.
It allows us to also bring more people to the table and introduce some new members of the organization, at least at the level that they're at now.
So let's cut right to it. You've got some new members of your command staff. Let's not keep the people at home waiting any longer. Let's introduce our guests.
Well, to my left, Chris Polen is not necessarily new to being lieutenant, but this year joined the ranks of watch commander and working in patrol. Also, with the retirement of Denise Quatman, I recently promoted Scott Whitehouse, and so now he joins the ranks of a watch commander on patrol. And so together, they run our field operations in the 7 days a week operation that delivers the frontline services to Vacaville.
Excellent. All right, so let's talk to Chris and Scott for a moment, shall we? Well, Scott, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got on the department, and your rise to the rank of lieutenant.
Well, I got hired in 1996, and I spent about 3 years on patrol as a junior patrol officer. And then from there, I went to SOLNET, which is the Solano County Major Narcotic Task Force. And I did that for about 4 to 5 years, and then I rotated back to Vacaville PD Narcotics. I did that for another 5 to 6 years, and then I rotated back to patrol, became an FTO, got promoted in 2011. I was a patrol supervisor for 2 years, and then I took over the narcotic team, and I did that for 2 years. And then recently in 2016, we started the Vice team, and then I supervised that, and here I am.
So FTO, Field Training Officer, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Help me out with the acronym.
Okay.
Lots of acronyms.
Yeah, that's government for you. So you spent a lot of time working in narcotics, it sounds like. That's pretty dangerous. Yeah.
It is. It is.
But you came through unscathed, thank
Absolutely.
goodness.
Absolutely.
Good. Chris,
Yes, sir.
same question. Give us the rundown. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
This is my hometown. Vacaville's my hometown. I've been here since I was 3 years old, and graduated from Wilsey Wood High School, and I was picked up at the age of 22 in the city of Suisun. Worked there for a couple of years, and in 2000 I came over to the city of Vacaville, and a variety of different assignments during that time. I worked as a field training officer. Worked as a officer in charge of, in absence of the sergeant, for patrol. Went to investigations, and then I was promoted out of investigations to the rank of sergeant in 2006, and went back to patrol. And then I had the opportunity to go work at our family services unit, special victims unit. Did that for a couple of years before rotating into the Office of Professional Standards, better known as Internal Affairs. And then I promoted to lieutenant in February of 2016.
There you go. So these guys are not quite a year into their, well, certainly Scott, you're brand new. Chris, not quite a year.
That's right.
Tough choices here, John, for you to pick, or was it kind of pretty easy? These two guys rose to the top.
Well, you would think it's easy, but when you have so many qualified people, it's not as easy as you would think. That said, this was not a difficult choice for either of these two. Both Chris and Scott, natural leaders in the organization, very involved in the community. The idea of what it means to lead an organization and to manage risk, to be able to handle the budget side of it. There's so much more to policing, especially at this level. You're a mid-level manager, but you're out on the street in one moment, and the next moment you're in City Hall working across department lines.
That's something that Captain Schmutzler has mentioned in the past. He went from, kind of up to his neck involved with, things out on the street to, going over the budget. Not quite as exciting as being on patrol, but equally important for sure. Administering the department is huge responsibility.
Well, I think even in recent command staff meetings, we meet weekly to look at the whole organization. So there's always the operational side, but
Right.
we deliver services through people. We're out in the field. Our mechanism for what we do, our car is our office. So when you think of all that it takes, it's a well-oiled machine. It's a little city in itself trying to manage the day-to-day 24/7 operation.
Right.
And they're responsible for it, these two.
Now, Chris mentioned he's been here since he was 3. Scott, you've been here.
I was born here. I went to Markham, Jepson, and Vacaville High.
Wow. So let's talk about that, how important it is for our officers to be not only a part of the community, but from the community. That's kind of key to the success, I think, of the Vacaville Police Department.
Well, I suppose you might apply to Vacaville and then learn how many people live here. We do have that reputation, so it seems as if someone might say, well, I wasn't born here, so I suppose I need to live here. Because it is that unique relationship we have with the community. And we find there's a greater level of engagement. And it really is, it is special to be able to say, I live here, my family lives here, I'm invested. And you take it a little bit more personal when you're delivering that service. And it does go a long way. And so it's amazing how many people who have grown up in Vacaville say, I want to work here, I want to live here. And it is that special piece of our organization that I think enhances our ability to deliver the service that people want.
Sure. And that's not to say that the folks in the department who aren't from Vacaville aren't as committed as these two gentlemen, because I'm a great example. I wasn't born in, and I didn't grow up in Vacaville, but I live here now. You come here and you find out what a great community is. You want to come here. You want to be a part of what's happening here. I mean, when you live in the city and then work in the city, you're in pretty deep, aren't you?
I would say so.
All right. So you guys are both new to the positions, but certainly not new to policing. Okay. And we've kind of chatted about this before the show started. Let's talk about, the state of policing right now based on things like the most recent election. John, you talked about Prop 64. That's the legalization of marijuana and its impacts on our community. And Scott, you, as we said earlier, spent a lot of time working in drugs in the drug detail. Well, I mean, what do you see as some of the big impacts of the legalization of marijuana in California?
Well, I think initially there's going to be a lot of confusion as to what is and isn't allowed as far as the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. We can kind of look to other states that have legalized recreational marijuana, like Colorado and Washington, and we can expect to see an increase in fatal collisions in regards to marijuana. I think that there's not a whole lot. It hasn't been tracked very well as far as what the effects of legalizing marijuana have been in other states. So I think, to a certain extent, we don't know what we're going to face. We can guess and we can surmise what is going to happen, but I don't think we know the full effects yet.
Sure. And it kind of makes you wonder: is this, without knowing that, is it a good idea to pass this proposition? I mean, it passed. It's on the books now, so we're just going to have to wait and see, I guess.
Right. We're just going to have to do the best job that we can and make measured and informed opinions, and follow the voters. The voters voted it in.
But it's got to put police in a tough spot, because you're kind of trained to deal with these things in a certain way, and then suddenly it's not that way anymore.
Well, police work is always evolving, and that's one of the good things about law enforcement is that the way we do business today is drastically different than we did 5 years ago.
Sure.
So the legalization of marijuana may have mixed it up a little bit, but we'll come to a new normal, and we'll continue to do our job. And so I think it's just changed. It hasn't.
I think many people would just look at the legalization of marijuana from the social side, and we can have a lot of conversations around our family and friends at home or in the community, and try to understand, what does this mean? Well, even this morning there was conversation about what are the courts going to do when there's a citation of a minor. Remember, this is under 21, it's not legal at all. In public, it's not legal. It doesn't allow for these grows to occur in residential areas. They're banned locally. And so, to what his point is absolutely true. the courts, the system is going to have to figure out what that is. But ultimately, our concern is what level of risk does it increase on the street from the perspective of driving? How much more endangered are we going to be because of it?
Right.
Also, in the issue of the commercialization, if it's not properly managed, it's going to drive these into the homes, and that's some of the investigations we've seen. And it creates opportunities for home invasion robberies because of the profit, which you might have a normally safe neighborhood, and all of a sudden you have a home invasion robbery.
Yeah,
And
not safe anymore.
Not safe anymore. Absolutely.
Well, and it we see this occasionally where things. I don't want to use a cliche, but I will. The cart is way in front of the horse. We're going to act on something that we're not sure what the consequences are. Now, in an ideal world, always, and you're able to act accordingly. But this is not, in my humble opinion, it's not the case.
It defies logic in a lot of things that we see going to the ballot measure. We've seen this with Prop 47. We've talked about that on prior
Right.
shows. We kind of emphasized what that might be prior to the election with Prop 57, now likely to create a greater release of more dangerous individuals from the state prison, but overwhelmingly supported by the voting population.
Right.
And so the question always is, why and how does this happen? It's usually through a lack of knowledge and understanding of what the true implications are going to be. We can clearly say, without a doubt, the evidence is in, crime has gone up because of Prop 47. So we can speculate the same thing is going to occur with 57.
57.
Yes.
Well, thank goodness we have a very good police department here to protect us, John. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, and it's important to us. It's important that it's easy to be disenfranchised usually the day after an election when these things occur.
Right.
But we'll gather as a command staff and talk about it and say, well, okay, it's a new day, so what do we do? And ultimately the conversation includes reflecting on it's business as usual in the sense that it doesn't always change the behavior. You can decriminalize actions. You can release what would be considered nonviolent individuals back into a community, knowing that if behavior doesn't change, the crimes will continue to occur.
Right.
We'll continue to respond to that. It won't stop our response and our resolve.
And speaking of responding to crimes, you like my little segue there? Again, something we talked about before we started was the idea of officer safety. When you are out on a call, even something as simple as a traffic stop, it's a whole new world out there now for a variety of reasons. And Chris, you mentioned that it's something that's on an officer's mind all the time. So why don't you talk about the new day in policing and the kind of things you guys are facing now in terms of this fear, this threat, however you want to characterize it.
I think we as a department do an excellent job of community outreach, trying to form those relationships with our community through Facebook, through personal interaction. But what we have to always focus on is our own folks as well, internally. And making sure we show them value, we show them support, and we give them the protection they need to do their job. And what's going on nationally is on the minds of a lot of officers right now. It's publicized through the media. We're well aware of it. And we see the effects of it through our own community and the gracious effects that they're showing us as well.
Right.
But you often see 3 officers on a car stop now.
Right.
And some people might think that's overload. To our officers, that's just showing support, that's showing protection, and to show that force that we were there in case something does happen. So it's not we're not trying to overload our community, but we are trying to show the protection of our officers and let them know it's okay to back each other up, and sometimes going three deep is important.
And it's funny you should mention that because my wife and I will be out driving around, shopping, out for dinner, whatever, and we'll see what is probably more than likely a traffic stop. And there's at least 2 cars there. And my wife will always comment, oh my God, something's going on. And I have to tell her, no, it's probably just a traffic stop. But in the world we live in today, you need backup on a traffic stop for the safety of the officer.
It's a peace of mind for them. And, we have families to go home to as well. And so that's one of the promises that we want to give to their significant others, to know that they have officers backing them up. So,
Well, I mean, I think in every organization, certainly in this type of organization, there's a responsibility to keep your people safe. Whether they're climbing a ladder to fix a light or making traffic stops. I mean, that's part of the job of the manager and the leadership, right?
We accept a certain level of risk every day. What we make sure that we include in the discussions with staff and the training is to not take unreasonable risks. So from procedures out in the field on a traffic stop, the difference of a traffic stop and high risk stop. There's information that may be available to the officers who are out on the scene, and so you might start seeing 3 and 4 officers, or a scenario where we might be ordering somebody out of a car. While it's generally safe in Vacaville, and it is, this is a safe community,
Right.
we would be foolish to believe that a criminal intent doesn't come through or even come from within a community. So how we respond to that is to ensure we're using best practices, best tactics to be safe. And that brings up another issue, is most people look to the police through their lens. And so everyone by now is beginning to assess, well, how do I interpret what's going on at the national level, at the local level? And we hear it, the overwhelming support. And that feels great, but every day when the officers leave their briefing, they'll make a traffic stop on someone who's on probation, on parole, who was released because of the different propositions that we've talked about, that really don't care about the law, that may be armed, disregarding any law that most people will abide. We see that every day. And so that's the different lens that most people would say, well, I don't see it because you're not in it every day.
Right.
And so our officers do, and so that's that balance of feeling appreciated at the same time being on alert.
Right. Right. Well, you said it, and Scott, the community clearly appreciates the job the Vacaville Police Department does. There's no doubt about it, and that's got to feel nice. Let's face it.
It is.
You're appreciated, as you should be. Hey, like I said, I live here. I'm thrilled. I know I can go anywhere in this community and feel safe. And a big reason is because of the job your men and women do in uniform. So that's good to hear. And speaking of men and women in uniform, we've kind of had a lot of retirements in the last few months, haven't we?
It seems like we have, and even recently at this time of year, almost weekly now.
Yeah.
Long careers, and people are retiring. And so it's both bittersweet. It puts demands on the organization, but it's an opportunity to bring in new individuals that are young and energetic and ready to serve the community. And that's something that Chris has taken over. Denise Quatman used to. We all divide up all these adjunct responsibilities as a command staff, and one major component is hiring and looking for people. So Chris has taken that over.
Yeah, it's been an interesting challenge thus far. Denise has done a fantastic job of hiring, and I know I have big shoes to fill based on the quality of people that she's brought in. It's definitely a specialty that you learn to work. So I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I know there's a lot of good people out there that are looking to come to Vacaville. We're pretty lucky in that sense. We have top recruits that are coming in, so it makes my job just a little bit easier, knowing that we have fantastic people wanting to work here. So it's a good challenge, but I look forward to it.
Do we see mostly laterals, guys from other departments wanting to come here, or are we getting guys out of the academy, or is it both?
A little bit of both. We're fortunate to see the laterals come through because we can train them quicker and get them out on the street quicker. And they have that knowledge base that we're looking for from day one. The entry level academy graduates we like because we can mold them to the Vacaville way. And they're full of energy, and they have excitement in their eyes. They love this job, and that balances out sometimes the veteran officer who may see things a little bit different.
Sure.
So we're getting both. We're getting the lateral and the entry level officer applying, which is good.
Good. And is it fun managing these guys? Scott?
Absolutely. I work. I'm the Team 2 watch commander, which means I work Wednesday through Saturday, which tends to be the younger members of the department, and it is fun watching them go out and be excited and be active and kind of kind of learn their way through law enforcement
Sure.
the way that we all did within the last 20 years.
Do you ever have flashbacks to when you were on your first day on the job? You know,
I do.
share your first day as a police officer with us, real quick, if you
Well,
don't mind.
I can tell you the very first call that I ever went on as a Vacaville police officer. Like I said, I'd grown up in Vacaville. I'd lived here my entire life. I went to college out of town, but I've been in Vacaville forever. The very first call was on Brown Street, and I used to live next to Brown Street. I've driven down Brown Street about a million times. Very first call was to an address on Brown Street, and I had no idea where it was. I had to pull over the car and pull out my map book and look it up, and I couldn't find it in my map book. And fortunately, my FTO was a veteran officer who kind of told me
Go
to
up
take
here
a
and
deep
turn
breath.
left, huh?
Yeah, he told me to take a deep breath, and he said, "You obviously know where this place is." And so
That's great.
smooth sailing from there.
Now, as you've been out there, certainly when you started, did people say, "Hey, Scott," or "Hey, there's Chris. Chris, you're a police officer now"? That happen, or
Absolutely, it still does.
yeah,
It
today
still does to this day.
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Wow, cool,
So it is.
excellent.
It's a very complex but rewarding profession. It really is. When you think of, one day you're a parent, the next day you're a counselor, you're comforting a family. You do so much. We've talked about this notion of being a guardian and a warrior. The complexity of this, there really is no greater or more complex job out there. But with that, it brings such a tremendous reward. So we're finding young and energetic people who want to be here. And I'm excited having these two on board. We couldn't have the entire command staff here today, unfortunately, but
Well, they're out working.
they're out working. They absolutely are. So that
All right. So, what else is going on in the department, John? Anything else you want to share with us?
Well, this is the season where we spend a lot of time trying to protect what I would call the interest of the season, and that is everyone's out shopping and enjoying themselves. And I would just encourage everyone at home, consider when you're driving somewhere that you're not leaving belongings in the car available for someone to steal, because all it takes is a moment. They look for cords, they look for items that they can break a window, and they're in and out in seconds. And so we're going to see an increase. It's nothing new. It's not just associated to Vacaville. But anytime that you have a lot of motorists that come through and are shopping and it's close to an I-80 corridor, you're going to see an
Gonna
increase.
happen,
So
sure.
it's not reflective of the overall community, but it certainly is reflective of what you're going to see with this type of dynamic. So
Well, all I had to do was look at Facebook or the newspaper, and let's see, this trio, they're from Oakland. This trio's from Sacramento. This trio's from Vallejo. Once in a while, we arrest somebody here in Vacaville. It's amazing, but
We've
but
educated most of
Yeah,
those.
exactly. For
Yeah.
the most part,
Yeah.
it's and that's the 10 years I've been here. That's been the case. Almost right down the line. So
I would, and finally, I would just say one of our missions within the organization is making sure that we look at the community as a whole, whether it's the homeless issue, the business community, and I encourage all of our staff is consider how you deliver the service with a cheerful attitude. Doesn't mean every day is going to be fun, doesn't mean every day is going to be without its challenges, but to engage a community, get out of your car, get out on the street, and get to know and talk with people. You'll find that it creates a stronger relationship, and that's the focus of so much of our success. So, that's our philosophy in the organization is work hard, treat people well, and at the same time have fun.
right. Well, listen, thanks, John, for coming on today. Chris, officially, congratulations and thank you. Scott, same to you. Congratulations.
Thank you very
And hopefully we'll have a future on the beats where you guys can come in and give us updates and let us know what's going on. It's a feature of this job that
That's right.
probably that the chief didn't share with you. So, surprise. We might have some spin-offs from On the Beat.
There
With,
could be. They could have their own show.
Yeah, the Lieutenant's Corner or something. We'll think of something.
That's right.
Anyway, thank you again, John.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Gentlemen, thank you. And thank you for watching this episode of On the Beat. We'll see you next time.